Hello and welcome Amplify You family. Michelle Abraham here, your host. I'm so delighted. I'm bringing you an amazing expert today, Arvee Robinson. Arvee is a speaker trainer. She is so amazing at what she does. In fact, she has an event coming up soon, $1 Million Speaker, which I'm really excited to be attending. Arvee is the master speaker trainer. She's an international speaker and author. She gives you all the tools and confidence to become an amazing speaker. So she's been doing this for over a decade with business owners, service professionals, entrepreneurs, and really using public speaking as a marketing strategy, which I love. We're going to dive more into that. And with these techniques, you'll instantly attract more clients, generate unlimited leads, and grow your business. So on top of everything else, what we love the most is getting our message out there in the world. So Arvee's helped over 5,000 people do this, you guys. I'm so excited to bring her here as your expert today. So welcome, Arvee, to Amplify You.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Great to be here.
Yeah, so excited to have you. I would love, oh my gosh, speaking and podcasting really go hand in hand. And it's funny because so many of my podcasters want to then, once they get a taste of speaking on the microphone, go on to be a public speaker. So Arvee, I want to start right there. Like, what is the best way for a podcaster who maybe has got a taste of it on their own show or going on as a guest on other shows? What's the next step? Like, how do they actually become a speaker that gets to go on stages?
Okay, great question. Well, they need to get trained because podcasting is different than standing in front of a group or standing in the virtual stage. So they need probably to get a bit more training is the first thing I would recommend. But it is different because the podcasts, a lot of them are interviews, and interviews are much different, or being an interviewer is much different than holding people's attention for a good 10, 20, or 30 minutes and having an organized speech that really builds rapport, delivers great content without overwhelming, over-deliver without overwhelming, and then a call to action or a close. So it's much different. So they should get trained in that particular area.
Absolutely. And not to mention, a lot of podcasts are audio, so we don't have that feedback or that instant feedback like you would when you're on stage. Do you find, Arvee, a lot of your speakers that you're training, they've done podcasts already, or is this something that they start off speaking first? Or what do you find most people are doing, podcasting first or speaking on stages first?
Actually, I find them speaking on stages first. They learn how to speak, they speak on stages for a while, and then they go, oh, okay, I think I'll do a podcast. Because they too, it's another avenue for them to stretch and to grow. And some of my speakers never do the podcast because they don't like the whole interview style of format. But most of my students will eventually go to podcast. And I recommend them to do that because it's another avenue. It's another stage to speak. And when you put other people on your stage, they'll put you on their stage. So now, you can reciprocate and expand. It's just a really great, easy way to get your message out. And there's people out there, listeners, that love podcasts. And those people, they just eat it up. So there's a big audience.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like we're speaking about two different tools, excuse me, but the way you actually use them in your business is very similar. So I like to trade podcast interviews with people to get on other people's shows, just like you were saying, trading stages. I love that idea as well. I think that's a great way to network and using it as a tool to network. When you're training your speakers, Arvee, are you finding that most of them are using this for like their presentation skills in their businesses, or is it to get paid to be a speaker, or is it more for like creating an offer to sell on stage? What do you find is the most common way of using speaking?
Well, primarily what I do is I teach business owners how to use speaking to leverage and to grow their business and to get those clients and leads. So my audience, my target market are businesses. So, but I do have some people that come to me and want to be that paid speaker. But, as you know, right now, that whole speaking thing is flipped. And now you often pay to speak and pay to get on stages. And some people that want to be that paid professional speaker don't understand the new model. So, so that's changed. But also a lot of people will come to me, not only to be business speakers and to use it to get more business, but yes, they come to me to help them create their offer and help them to teach and sell their offer. And then I get a lot of people too that are that have a different kind of business. And in other words, like pastors and people that have that message and they just want to make sure that they're delivering it in the best persuasive manner, and sometimes, I get brigadier generals who speak and bark all the time, but they want to know how to create and craft that persuasive, motivating presentation. So I've had students from 8 years old all the way up to 82 years old. So it's a wide range.
That is a wide range, and for a wide range of reasons too. So I love what you're saying about speaking. And are there anything that we need to know about, like when we're getting on stage? What would be some good tips for us to really like our stage presence, up level it maybe?
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about the virtual stage right now because
good idea.
It's really hot, and that's what everybody's doing. And the virtual stage, a lot of people think that because it's virtual, that they don't need to do all the things that they need to do when they're speaking outside. And it means also not take enough training too, right? They think that, it's virtual, it's forgiving. No, everything in the virtual world is magnified. Everything. Now, imagine this. When you go out on stage, when you're speaking at a local, let's say, Chamber of Commerce or at a local hotel or at a local restaurant, nobody will fault you for anything that's going on, right? In other words, the stage, the lighting, the microphone, or not having a microphone. No one's going to fault you for it. They know you're just the guest speaker coming in and doing them a favor by giving them a great presentation. But that's not so in the virtual world. In the virtual world, you are responsible for the stage. You're responsible for the lights and making sure people can see you. You're responsible for the sound. You have to make sure there's no noisy distractions and telephones and dogs. And yes, I'm guilty sometimes. But you're in charge of it. Or people, if you don't create a great environment, then people are going to shut out. They're just not going to listen to you. And it's so much harder in this environment because people are at home. They're in their home office. They can do other work. They can turn off their video and you don't know if they're looking or present. And I tell people, I teach Zoom etiquette too, because I tell people, if you come into a room, a Zoom room, any of those kind of rooms, and you come in there with your video off, it is like you putting a bag over your head and coming in a networking room, going into a restaurant or going into a chamber meeting with a bag over your head. You would never, ever do that. So I say, if you're going to come in with your video off, just don't come because you're not there anyway. You've got to come into this environment playing full out, whether you're the speaker or whether you're the guest. Now, another thing a speaker can do to be, play at a level 10 is to stand up. I have a stand-up desk, and I stand up when I speak because that's what you really would do out in the outside world. And because then your diaphragm is open, you can be more energetic, you can use more hand gestures and be more animated and just have that energy, which you need so much more energy now because people can only see you from the waist up. So,
it's like, that's a whole different world now.
Yes, it's speaking out of the box when you're in the box. Right? Don't just get comfortable and sit down and go, I'm just having a conversation. No, not if you're the speaker. You got to bring it on. And it's getting more and more difficult because early, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, people were a lot more forgiving. But now people are professional Zoom goers, right? They've got Zoom butt. And, we go to Zoom meetings like several times a day. So people are getting more critical in terms of what they expect of you as a speaker, presenter, host, whatever it is. So you have to bring on your A game.
That's a really good point. And especially even when you're in the audience, I like what you said about, really having your video on, being present, and otherwise don't show up. Because if you're there to network, you're there, that you're also creating a first impression, right? Like, it's interesting. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. If you would never go into a room to network with people, with wearing your pajamas and not hairbrushed or
That's
anything.
true too. Isn't that right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is true. That's funny. Yeah, it's a whole new world that we're in these days. So it's really interesting. Do you foresee stage speaking coming back again in the next little while?
I see it coming back, but not until about 2023. Yeah, in
Interesting.
terms of groups, large groups of
Mhm.
more than 20. I mean, my $1 million speaker summit, I have over 100 people, right? Coming physically. And it takes that because and that's not a big event. That's an intimate event. And that's what I prefer is intimate events so that people get to meet more people and just have a really good time. But now going virtual, you can reach more people, right? But
Mhm.
for me to be able to put on an event like that and be able to pay for the guy that sets up the back and the music guy and the sound, all that, it's very, very expensive. So 20 people in a room will not cut it, will not at
Mhm.
all. So I need a big event just to be able to pay, for the room and for the food and the hotel and all of that. So I don't see those big ones coming about until about 2 or 3 years from now. A lot of people are starting to book events in January 2021, but
Mhm.
they're going to be small. They're
Yeah.
just going to be small events. People are scared. We've been conditioned now to kind of work this way and stay away from people. And I walk down the street walking my dogs, and people will go completely around me. Don't even walk past me. Some people think that's crazy. Some people think, well, that's smart and safe. So there's two camps. So it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell what's going to happen. But I think it's going to be a few years because we have to get comfortable with it again,
Mhm.
comfortable being around people again. I mean, it's wild. It's a shame, in church, we used to always shake hands and greet people and hold hands while we did the Lord's Prayer. And now we can't do that anymore. Right. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
it's just, it's conditioned us and changed the way that we not only do business, but interact with each other.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot of things in the world. As our kids are going back to school this week too, as we record this, it's going to bring all sorts of different things into play. And thank goodness for platforms like Zoom, where we can still go and do an event. But like, it's just, you're right. It's like a completely different world. Zoom versus like being on a podcast versus speaking on a stage. But in your goal as a speaker, when you're speaking on stage, what is it you're trying to get your audience to do as a speaker?
Well, you want to motivate them. See, as a speaker, your message is really important. And I believe that you have a message to share that only you can share to people that can only hear it from you. And that message will save their business, their life, or even their soul. So that's why it's really important for you to learn how to get it out there, because nobody else can deliver that message, only you. Our messages are unique for us, and they're unique for the people that need to hear them. And most of the time when you speak, you'll never know the lives that you've touched. You won't know the lives that you've touched, but know that you're touching them every single time you speak. And a few months ago, there's this woman, I was speaking at an event, and my speaking time got cut by 10 minutes. And so, I was driving there and I got a text that it was cut by 10 minutes. And so I had a choice to make. Was I going to go because I was not happy about it? Was I going to go and be gracious, or stay home or go home, right? So I decided I was going to go, and I got there, and I was in the afternoon. So I was there all day long. I saw the vendors and all of that, bought stuff, had a good time. It was a book expo. And then it was my time to speak, and there was another break before, like a 30-minute break. And so I just went to the host and said, hey, how about if I, how about if we cut the break by 10 minutes and give me those 10 minutes back? And so she did. So I spoke, did my presentation, got off stage, and this woman comes up to me and she said, Arvee, she goes, I bought your book last year and I gave it to my dad. And my dad has dementia. And it's given my dad so much hope that he wants to talk about dementia. And but he lost his book and he's so upset about it. So I came back this year hoping that you'd be here, that I could buy another book. I'm like, wow. Of course, I gave her a book and him a book and personally signed it. And I asked her, I said, do me one favor. When you give it to him, videotape it on your phone and send it to me so I can just see his reaction. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind, and she did, and it was fabulous. It was just like he was in tears. But that's the kind of impact that as speakers, and as long as you know how to speak properly, right, you can have that kind of impact and influence and persuade people to take action, whether it's to take action and buy, it might be take action on a cause, take action to donate, or just take action on maybe something you want them to do for themselves. It's powerful.
I love that. Do you really recommend using like storytelling when you're on stage too?
Yes, absolutely. You must learn to be a master storyteller. And because there's 4 stories that you need to have in your presentation. This is a signature talk presentation. If you have a real short one, 5 minutes, then obviously not. But you always want to have your professional story. So for example, my professional story is I didn't set out to be a speaker. As a matter of fact, it was by accident. My degree is in information systems. I'm a geek, right? Half geek. And I went to work for a company by the name of Deloitte, right? Big CPA company as a systems consultant. And my job was to set up financial accounting systems. Now, this was back in the 80s. So this is when microcomputers first came on the scene. And all of a sudden, smaller businesses could afford computers, where before they took up the size of a room, right? So it was a revolutionary time. So my boss came to me and said, Arvee, I want you to get out there and start speaking and tell people we're offering this service. And I thought to myself, well, I took a speech class in college, right? I'm good to go. I knew everything there was to know about public speaking. So I thought, but I didn't. And I didn't land one job, not one project, not one client. And I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And so one day this woman comes up to me at the end of my talk. And I'm thinking, okay, I must be getting better because I was like the loneliest speaker in town, right? And she came up to me and she says, honey, I hate to tell you this, but do you know that after every sentence you say, okay? Just looked at her, and the only thing I could think of saying back to her was, okay, right?
Okay.
Excuse me. But that told me that I needed to respect public speaking and get trained. And so I did. I did everything I could to get trained. I read books, I went to seminars, everything I could. And then the most amazing thing happened. The better I got, the better my clients got, the better my opportunities got, the better my promotions got, the better visibility I got in the firm. I mean, it was amazing. And I shot up, of course, in corporate, and I was there 23 years. In corporate America. And then I reached the top, right? Senior manager. And there was nowhere else for me to go. And there were so many other people in my industry that just flooded the industry. And the competition was getting tougher and it just wasn't any fun. I was blazing trails early on. And now I was just a middle manager, pushing papers, making proposals, and, evaluating staff. And so I knew I needed to do something different. Now, I've used public speaking throughout that career, but I did what every smart girl would do. I prayed about it. And God said, teach others what I've taught you. That's how he said it. And I knew exactly what he meant. So I left corporate America. Now that's 17 years ago, practically to the day. In October, it'll be 17 years that I've been teaching business owners and entrepreneurs and coaches, consultants, how to use speaking to market themselves. So, and I've never regretted it. And I've worked for myself longer than I've worked for anybody else.
Good for you. That's great. And I love speaking. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the professional story with a lesson.
Yeah.
emotional story, and success stories, because nothing sells better than success. So those are the 4 stories that you need.
Yeah, you did that so seamlessly too that we didn't even know you were taking us through all those stories, right? It was just like you were answering the question there. And
That's right.
obviously it's been well rehearsed and integrated into you to do that. I love listening to how you just did that so seamlessly, knowing some of the background about some speaking signature talks, formulas. It was really cool to see you just whip that out there. So thanks for sharing the insider scoop with us. I love that. And so do you think that's something we should also be doing in our podcasts as well, like especially if they're our own podcasts as a host?
Absolutely. Not only telling stories, but getting your interviewee to tell stories. Always ask them about themselves and their background, their backstory, or how did they get to be where they are today, because that gives them the credibility that they need for listeners to continue listening. So they earn the right. So always, if you're the interviewer, ask your interviewee, and as the interviewer, you can put in some other stories as well. But normally when you're the interviewer, you want to make them the star.
That's right.
So get them to do more of the stories. Yeah.
I love that. And what was the story behind the $1 Million Speaker event? I'd love to know how you got started doing that event, because it's been running for several years now.
Yes, I've been doing that for 5 years, but I've ran other events. I had years ago an event called Speak Your Way to Wealth, an event called Go for the Gold, and then I had some other events for women. And then 5 years ago, I did this event. So, and this first year, I'm doing it virtually, of course. And of course, the virtual arena has kicked off. I mean, so many people are doing so many virtual events, but I've really focused on mine being different. And that is not only with music, I'm using combination with music and PowerPoint, and of course, some different fun things like little paddles that people can hold up. Because at my live event, if you get $1 million idea, you yell out millions. Well, people won't be able to do that with 100 or 200 people, to be crazy. So I've made paddles so that people could say their millions, and all kinds of fun stuff so that they can enjoy the day. And I have a lot of activities that people can do. A lot of people I've noticed, they're really getting, well, maybe it's just me. I'm really getting tired of these breakout rooms, right? It's like, oh no, not another breakout room. Because people are just not making them fun. So I've come up with some ideas to make mine fun, like scavenger hunts, stuff like that, where people go and get some artifacts and then they go in the room and talk about them. A lot more exciting than just going in and going, you have 30 seconds to say who you are, right? And then there's always that person in there who wants to dominate or blah, blah, blah. It's I'm getting to where I don't like them too much. So we will have a few of them, but they will be very well orchestrated and fun, I promise. So several things that I'm doing to keep the audience engaged, which again, it's harder in the virtual world, ladies and gentlemen. It is harder in the virtual world. You think it's easier? No, think again. Think again. Because you're competing with more than people's cell phones. We're in a live event, we're competing with cell phones, really, right?
That's
and
right.
that's it for their attention. But now we're competing with everything: kids, dogs, cell
Emails,
phones, email. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
Really,
It's going to be a whole different world trying to do events like, virtually versus in person. And I think at first people were like, yeah, this was going to save some money on the event space, but it's a whole different experience. I've been to a lot of them recently. I'm really looking forward to yours because I know yours is going to be different. I know you've added so many unique elements to it.
yes.
And so for anyone listening to this, there is still time because we are just recording this and we're going to publish it live before the event so that you have time to join me at the event as well. I'm going to be participating. And so, Arvee, where can we find out more information about the $1 Million Speaker event?
Just go to the website, which is very simple. It's $1 Million Speaker Summit, SUMMIT, $1 Million Speaker Summit.com. And you'll find all the information there. There's, general admission or full access where you get the recordings and a lot of other fun stuff. and fun activities. So $1,000,000speakersummit.com.
Fantastic. And before we let you go, I've got a few more questions for you along the lines of becoming a speaker. So, and using, you're really passionate about using your speaking to market your business. What are a couple of tips you have for people looking to add speaking to as one of their marketing tools?
Okay, so get trained first. That would be my tip, get trained. And even if you've been trained as a speaker a long time ago, speaking has changed just like any other industry. So it's much different. I mean, back, a long time ago, people were doing more lectures, presentations, conversations. But now where it is people, they really want that experience, number one. And where it's going is people want naked authenticity. And that means they want you to be real. They want you to be transparent. They want you to be who you are. Now, that doesn't mean without respect to your audience. When I say transparent, doesn't mean going to be goofy and all that, but it means letting people know who you are, right? So for example, I've everybody that's here listening to this knows I'm a woman of faith, just because I let you know that I am. You also know that I love dogs because I talked about dogs. So it's subtle, but it's simple, and those people will gravitate to you, the people that like you. It's not opposites, it's people that like you. They're familiar with you. They like the same thing you do. Some people go, oh, wow, I worked at Deloitte too, and then we have that bond, that we have that connection. So don't be afraid, and don't be politically correct anymore, because it gets you nowhere. It's going to attract clients that don't like you and you don't like them, and then they're going to be a problem. Then they're going to want their money back. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Just let people in. Let them know what you stand for, what your core values are, what you believe in. And I'm not saying you get political up here either. That could be very unpopular. But just, the kind of person you are, just let them in. Be real.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like, people can just relate to you so much more when you don't seem so uber polished, right? Like you've allowed for that authenticity to come through and be more relatable. And I remember this from being in the fitness industry and, having curvy hips and, being a normal sized girl. It attracted more clients that way. They weren't after, the super, bulk health, like weightlifter, right? They were after someone that they could relate to. And so I think that's such an important point.
Exactly. Now, when I say be yourself, I'm not saying that you don't practice and rehearse and be professional. I'm not saying that at all. You still need to practice 1 hour for every 2 minutes of speech. So if you're doing a 30-minute speech, that means 15 hours. And that's how you get good. That's how you become transparent and relax and can let all that, stuff that a lot of people hang on to, like their words. Don't ever write out your speech word for word, or you will become a prisoner of your own words and you will want to read it. And then you'll lose your place. And then we can see it on the screen. Don't do it. You just outline and practice, for heaven's sakes. And when you practice, speak out loud so you can hear it. That's how you get good. That's how you become the script. And that's what professional speakers do.
That's a great tip. Thank you. Interesting. One last question on that before we let you go, Arvee. I know your time is so valuable, especially leading up to a big event that you have coming up. What is the best way to find stages for people to get on?
Oh boy, you know what?
And that's a loaded question. Sorry.
It's crazy busy now. Crazy busy because everybody's gone virtual. So the other day, couple of days ago, I spoke in Las Vegas, right? And I would have never been able to go to Las Vegas and drive there and do it all for free, right? So they're opening up. I think I have 5 speaking engagements this next week. Just people have been coming out of the woodwork and calling me up and having me speak at their events. I'm speaking tomorrow morning at an event, that's an hour drive away if I was to drive it. So to answer your question, number one, it's like, go online, start going to some of these networking events. There's like women happy hour events that are happening. So there's extra events that are happening that wouldn't happen. And go and visit them, visit as many as you can and see if it's a right fit for you and your topic. And then reach out to to the president, the host, who's ever running the meeting. I did that yesterday. I was talking to a client of mine about something else. And then I said, well, what about your group? You're hosting a group. And he's like, yeah, I am. And so I got an 8-minute spot. Woohoo! On Friday, so just go out there and network and open yourself up, and they'll come. Once people start knowing your topic and if you're a good speaker or not, then they will tell somebody else, and they'll tell somebody else, and you'll get all the speaking engagements you can handle. Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to tell people when you're introducing yourself in a Zoom room for 30 seconds that you're a speaker, right? You might be the president, CEO of a company, but you can also add, and I'm a speaker looking for speaking engagements. Mm-hmm. And that will absolutely attract speaking engagements to you if you did that, if you just made that a habit.
Yeah, interesting. And it's such an important point, because I have been speaking for a while, but I've never asked on social media. And just recently someone challenged me to just ask on my Facebook profile if anyone knew of any speaking engagements coming up. I got 13 speaking engagements, including speaking for Deloitte in the Grand Caymans. So isn't that crazy? Like, it was just out of the blue. Like, that was such a good tip. Yeah, it was really interesting how that just kind of unfolded, and I never thought to ask on social media for that. So
now, what social media was it? LinkedIn or Facebook?
It was actually on Facebook.
Wow.
Just on my personal profile, yeah. And these people were actually personal friends of mine that were reaching out, didn't know that I was speaking. And just goes to show you that no matter you use social media, that people still don't know necessarily what you're doing unless you ask for something.
Now, did you ask for it in a post, or you just put it in your profile?
I asked for it in a post. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's a good strategy, Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that tip because you said to ask, and it's, it just as a proven strategy that works so well. So just ask, because people don't know that you're looking unless you let them know. And that's what I find. Just like you asked your client the other day, and there you go. Now you have a spot on his thing. So I think that's really great. So thank you, Arvee. You've got so much great content. I'm really excited. What can we expect to learn at the $1 Million Speaker Summit coming up?
Well, you're going to learn, and it's just me training. So it's not a multi-speaker marathon or anything. It's speaker training. So you're going to learn how to craft your $1 million message, how to reach millions, especially in this virtual world, and how to make millions. So that's basically it. How to making millions, meaning use it to attract clients, use it to sell from the platform, that kind of thing. So it's going to just be incredible. So whether you're speaking now or not speaking, thinking about speaking, or a professional speaker, there's going to be a lot of information for you, because I'm revamping my entire presentation for the 3 days, because I'm adding the whole virtual training. So the virtual world, virtual etiquette, how to look your best, how to speak your best. And then we're going to do some Facebook Live training. I've got a formula for that we're going to do. So it's totally different than it was. So if you've been before, it's totally different this year, because we're in a different world on different stages.
I love it. And Arvee, to be honest, you're the first person I've heard say that you're teaching people how to use the virtual stages too. I think that above anything else is as well a really interesting takeaway that we're going to be able to get from your event. So I'm really looking forward to all of those things, learning from the master herself, and just honing in on those stories and those skills and that presence and standing up. And I'm standing up too, because I cannot sit down doing podcast interviews. Yay. People can hear that, right? They can hear your energy through the microphone, and even more so when you're standing on the stage in front of them. So thank you so much, Arvee, for your time today. I know how busy you are, so we really value so much and are honored that you would spend this time with us. And for those of you guys listening at home, please go and join me at the summit. Super excited. Again, it's $1millionsummit.com.
Speaker Summit.
Speaker Summit, sorry.
Speaker Summit.
$1 Million Speaker Summit. Sorry, Arvee. Summit.com. Make sure you join us there. And you are going to learn so much and get so much value. And I'm super thrilled to be going as well. So Arvee, thank you again for your time today.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. And just the last word for the listeners, just remember, everybody out there is waiting for your words.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Until next time, Amplify You family, be awesome. Go out there, share your message with the world because the world needs you. Thanks again, Arvee.
Bye-bye.